What is up, guys? This is Voices of doing something a little bit different today. So as you guys have checked out our channel, for the majority of what we do, it's nerd related, has to do with DC, Marvel, Star Wars, anything along those lines. So last week a new game came out, Gotham Knights. Some of us have been able to get our hands on and play through, and so I've done, for the last 4 or 5 days, gone through a majority of the missions, playing through some of the characters. Well, I played through all the characters, however, I did start maining one specifically. So I haven't gone through the entire campaign / storyline with all of the characters, however, I am a vast majority through with the main character that I've been playing. This is going to be our first of hopefully many game-related reviews. A lot of it will have to do mostly with DC, Marvel, or Star Wars related games as of right now. And if you guys are enjoying this content, maybe we can progress a little bit further and start looking into other games outside of that genre of storytelling. So, first initial thoughts, the game is solid. There's been a lot of hate on this game. A lot of people saying that it looks like a mobile game, hopping on with the whole frame per second problem. However, after actually playing it, sitting down with it for more than, the start mission, there is a good flow. It is a decent game. It's not perfect. There's definitely some flaws. However, this is early in its stages. Well, not exactly, but unfortunately nowadays most companies will put out a game and it still be early in its stages. After probably a couple first and second, third and fourth patches, the game is going to be pretty well-rounded, I'll say that. I'm going to go in depth on a couple of different mechanics that it goes through, and then also break down the 5 main areas that I think need to be talked about with it, as well as giving my ratings on each one of those. And then at the end there will be a final rating, and I'll also give you what I'm going to start calling my worth the price. So essentially, after the full review of this game, I will say if it was worth the full price, what I think it should be if it wasn't, and if you guys should or should not, and my thoughts on how or why you should. First off, they did something different where they started a new mechanic that was a night and a day mechanic. During the night mechanic, essentially you went out in uniform as one of the 4 main characters, Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, and Red Hood, and you pretty much played through all of Gotham, interacting with side quests, main missions, villain missions. There's collectibles that can be collected, like batarangs, quick caches, all types of different things. This is a cool mechanic because during those nights there isn't a reset. So say, for example, there was a bomb threat. During the bomb threat, if you failed that, or if one of the individuals did get blown up by the bomb, that is a failed attempt. You can't go back to that same spot. You can't reload that. The next night you might have the opportunity of doing something similar, but if you go through all of your encounters and you don't do the right amount of interrogation to figure out what you need for your quest line, you do have to go on to the next night. It kind of makes the game feel a little bit more immersive because each individual is now, there's that little bit in the back of your head that's like, I need to do this properly. I need to take my time. I need to think this out before I just rush in. It's not so much of the guns a-blazing going in type of deal. It's a more methodical approach. Per night, there's usually about 1 to 3 main story missions. These have a good amount of dialogue plotted within them. It breaks down a lot of what this main storyline is. I'm not going to go in depth on that just because of spoilers. The game is new, but it is a really built out plot line, and I'll get more into that later. There's usually about 2 to 3 villain missions. Those are actually pretty immersive. The villains all have their own kind of personality. The downside that I saw with it personally, and this is just one way that I interpret Mr. Freeze, in this Mr. Freeze, this all stemmed from Batman dying. And that's not a spoiler because that is the first mission. I'm not going to explain how or why or anything along those lines, but Batman dies, so Freeze kind of gets mad because I guess Batman and Freeze had a deal of like, oh, you don't do bad, Mr. Freeze, and I, as Batman, will figure out a way to help your wife. Well, now he just shot that out of the water, and now he's like killing tons of people, which never was the case for Mr. Freeze. Like, he'd freeze people, but there was always that thing in the back of his head that said, like, this is all for my wife. Like, I'm not a villain, I'm just a misunderstood person. So I was upset that they interpreted him that way. I haven't gotten more into his quest line right now because I've kind of been like maining a lot of side quests, but I'm hoping that kind of switches. Harley Quinn's was pretty interesting. Actually having the Red Hood, there was some kind of cool dialogue that kind of went with that. Each character does have a little different dialogue depending on how you're playing. Harley Quinn will respond to you differently if you're Batgirl than if you were Nightwing, or if you were Robin, or if you were even Red Hood. Same thing even goes for the Penguin. There's a quick, in the first mission, there's a quick interaction with the Penguin, and he responds to you differently. And then I also played it a separate time, and that was also a different response. And I saw other people playing it with different characters, and there was different responses as well. There's also 3 to 5 side quests. These have kind of cool setups to them. There's one that's like based on like Reddit forums and servers. People are putting together connections that Bruce and Batman were the same, so you get a like automated email from Bruce explaining like you need to go here, you need to like plant these files so that people don't catch on with it. And you're like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. There's also like secret caches that Batman had put throughout Gotham. It's kind of like a jump to this point parkour type of quest. It's a quick little thing. You get like 25 seconds. You have to connect like 6 different checkpoints. But it's a cool way to also involve Batman a little bit more. And that also allows you to get better with your world traverse skills, which I do have a couple of pet peeves with that. The collectibles, you happen upon them as you're playing the game. There's nothing crazy about them. There's a couple of batarangs. I don't even remember the rest of them as of right now, but like the batarangs are the main one, and you'll find those as you're going. I've picked up so many of them while I'm doing the caches. There's also hero specials, which for like the Red Hood, it's called the Knighthood missions. So there's specific missions that you do per night that will benefit you in your momentum power as well as your special ability, which for Red Hood was the Lazarus jump. And if you haven't caught on, Red Hood was the character that started maining. I played through enough nights to where I could feel how each one of them did and each one of them played. And then I decided I did like the Red Hood the most. I like the firearm aspect. He's one of my favorite characters within the entire DC universe. I like his storyline, and if you go by the animated version with him, Jensen Ackles plays him, which if you're a Supernatural fan, that automatically sticks you in. So that closes it out for the night mechanic. There is a day mechanic, and this is completely story-based. It's a lot of cutscenes, and it's interactions with the other characters while they're all in there. All the characters are active in the day mechanic. You're in the Belfry, you're not anywhere else, you're in the Belfry, and there's like little kitchenette, there's all of the different areas that you're able to walk through. You can go and change out the costumes for Batgirl, for Robin, for Nightwing, and for Red Hood in this section. There's a spot where you can change the color of the bat bike, and there's also the computer that you're able to able to get into that goes in depth for your gear types, your different power levels, all the different types of gears that you can make, the crafting for those, ability score powers, ability score attributes that you can add on to your skill tree. Skill tree is pretty lackluster. Does take a little bit of, it kind of feels a little grindy, not a lot, but kind of a little. It is a pretty immersive mechanic that they put in. I thought it was kind of funny. There are emails that characters will get sent to them, and they're all specific to the characters. There's one, since I'm playing the Red Hood a lot, Jason Todd gets emails constantly that have to do with therapy sessions that he goes to, because he had died and then was brought back to life by the Lazarus Pit. There's interactions with like Barbara and him because he's so like conceited back, like he's so jaded and conceited back from all the rest of the Bat family. There's interactions that he has with, I thought it was really cool, Clark Kent, you know, sent him an email. And I get that this is all just, you know, devs writing this up for fun, but Clark Kent had sent him an email and was like, hey, I know Bruce always said that you were one that kind of kept everything to himself. And I just want you to know, like, I'm here for you, like, during all of this. That's something that was specific to Red Hood. And that was a really cool aspect. Like, not to be weird, but it kind of helped me, like, understand, like, this is who the character is that I'm playing. And it kind of made me feel a little bit better about the character. And that there was still a progression within his character and his persona that I was able to play through as I was going. However, I will say there's some, like, you know, cheesy dialogue, voice acting that goes through. But even going through all the cutscenes, because there's quite a few, I still haven't wanted to skip through a cutscene. I've actually enjoyed like sitting and watching most of it. Now I'm going to get into the 5 main areas that I want to break down and give my rating. So combat was a little rough. However, I am giving it a 7.5 out of 10. Repetition is the bane of its combat. The factions all have something to them aesthetically that are different, however, not mechanically. You do start getting into some elemental changes for their damage types, which is kind of cool. The tech-based ones, they kind of side with freeze, so a lot of their stuff is fire damage. And then you start to see like other ones start to build in. The freaks and the mobs both have differences in how they look, but are not a lot with how they mechanically work throughout the game. The boss enemies are more annoying than challenging because of the constant evasion, and that's one of the pet peeves with this. And the combat would be fun if there was countering. The counter mechanic helped it to feel a lot more fluid in most games that have a counter, because when you're only evading, you're just rolling out of the way and then hopping back, where with the counter you were stopping and then also aiming to do a quick attack. That was one of the things that shined so much with the Arkham series. I'm not comparing this to the Arkham series. I'm going to get that out of the way immediately. This is a different game. I don't want it to be compared to the Arkham series. I know a lot of people are, and it's just, it feels different, and it feels so much different that I want to give it the benefit of being its own game and not oh, this is supposed to be compared to Arkham. Because it's like, you can't do that. Like, you can't compare the Avengers game to the Spider-Man game. It's just, they're so different in so many ways that it doesn't even make sense to compare them. But the counter was something. However, even with only evading, there was still a flow of combat. It felt comfortable, I'll say that. It wasn't a really fantastic feeling. A lot of times if I was like on the bat bike and I saw like a random encounter pop up, I would hop off the bat bike, jump into the combat and start just running through a lot of the different things. It's quick. It's very fast-paced combat, especially when you get to higher levels and you're dealing with low-level guys. Like, you can rip through them with like 2 or 3 knocks and then they're done. The special moves are pretty fun. Each one of them has their own. The Lazarus jump, which is Red Hood's main one, kind of has some cool aspects, especially when you're able to do like the Lazarus attacks, where it's like he loads up his fist with Lazarus energy and just starts wailing on people. That is the majority for the combat mechanics. This is more of like a pet peeve type of thing that I just noticed while I was playing, and I gave this a 5.75 out of 10. It's not great. The mechanics feel a little bit clunky. They're not super user-friendly. The grapple mechanics need some tuning, definitely. I found myself spamming the buttons as I was progressing, because it didn't make sense to me that if I grappled onto this ledge, I had to get to that ledge completely, and then I have to get up on top, then grapple. It was like, why couldn't I have canceled the grapple and then shot it to the next one? Because that was something that you could do in Arkham, and it was something that I kind of got used to. And I remember how fast that movement was. Now, being the Red Hood, I can do a lot of, like, I'll do Lazarus jump a while and then connect with the grapple, then I'll jump from there and start doing the Lazarus jump. So I did find a really good movement with my character. However, it is still sometimes frustrating, especially when you're doing some of the timed things. The secret caches, those are very heavy on the mechanics for the grapple gun, and I failed a couple of those because the mechanic was so weird on like where it would aim sometimes. I did get used to it, but it took a little bit more than I think it should have. The bike is also super slow. Handling is very easy though. I would be fine, however, losing some of the handling if it meant that I could go faster than a taxi by like 10 miles per hour. The next portion is where this game shines. The story. Solid 9.25 out of 10. This is one of the first times I've went through something and felt that Batman really was a father figure to the Bat family. The training sessions, it was kind of cool because each one Bruce would start off with a monologue, and then after each one he would like almost talk to you like, oh, I'm proud of you. Kind of felt weird sometimes because it was like, but at the same time, like these characters were taught by Batman. They were taught by Bruce. They were raised by Bruce. So seeing them and hearing like the responses that they had to this was something so crazy. And like the fact that Batman isn't even a solid person in this other than at the very beginning and occasional like flashback cutscenes, it's crazy how involved Batman feels within all of the characters. Like they're trying to develop themselves, but also dealing with the grief of losing their father. For the most part, the voice acting is decent. It's not outstanding. I would say like B-list, not A-list, but it's definitely not like C and D list, like really bad stuff. It's B-list characters. I might be wrong, but personally they just felt more B-list because of how their inflection was. The first cutscene is brutal if you're a diehard fan, and you'll know exactly what I mean when you watch it. Although the story was great, like I said, it was delivered by some poor instances, and that's the only reason why it's not a 10. If people are saying I'm partial because of this, this was a really good storyline. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was something that I appreciated as a fan of DC, so that's my take on it. This is my opinion. You don't like it, that's okay. Player progression, 7.25 out of 10. My feelings are still on the fence with this. The level up mechanics seem like well spaced. I never felt like it took me too long to get to another level. Power mechanic was okay. I would have hoped for more of like an upgrade specific aspect to your characters, similar to the Arkham series. I know I'm comparing it, but that was kind of a really cool fluid. I love that this doesn't have microtransactions yet. I would say I would hope that it never would, but at the same time, I feel like they still will find a way to put microtransactions in. The suits also looked great. I loved the suits. I loved all the different types of suits that you had. You were able to customize the cowl, the arms, the emblem, and the legs for each one, which was a cool touch. However, there's only like 3 options per suit, which there's like 15 or 16 suits, so it's a good amount of options, but I would have liked more options per suit. Like, it would have been cool to like have the Batman Beyond cowl for Red Hood with the like Knighthood suit, or like with the Titan suit. I think those would have been really cool. Last but certainly not least is the coolest part about this game, which is the multiplayer and co-op. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed this a lot, actually. It led to some very random encounters with just completely random people. From them joining in, doing like a quick encounter with me, and then hopping right back out. If you play this with a friend, it's cool because you actually do have to develop some strategies and utilize the combat space together. And the independence that you have in someone else's game is also really cool. It's not like like you have to stay around each other. It's not like those like old feeling games where like you can't stray too far from yourselves. It's literally like you could be in a completely different area than another character and still be progressing in the same world. And I think that's a really cool touch. That's all of it from me. In total, I do not believe it's a bad game. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It is its own game. It isn't Arkham. And it is kind of frustrating that people are getting so stuck on it, not being Arkham, that they can't let it be its own game. No, this wasn't Rocksteady. This was a completely different company. But they did good with what they got. There could have been more tweaks. There could have been more to it. There could have been differences. However, I enjoy the game that it is, and the whole locked at 30 FPS thing doesn't bother me much. I played on my PS5. It looks great. I don't have any problem with the graphics whatsoever, and I think a lot of people that bring that point up are mostly doing that as like troll basis and really wouldn't understand the difference when they actually saw it. Final score on it, 7.65 out of 10. Not terrible. It would have passed with a C. However, when it deals down to, is it worth the new sticker price of $70? No, it is not. I do enjoy it. I love it. I think this was a $40 game, and as long as the DLC is under $10, I think they'll be good from that on. I would definitely wait until this went on sale. When it goes on sale, there's probably going to be a decent amount of people buying this because the reviews did flip. Like, there's still some haters, but most of them haven't actually gotten the game. But the reviews have flipped, so I think when people get this game on sale, there will be an influx of players. And hopping on with some rando is actually pretty fun. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the first of our game reviews for Gotham Knights. If you guys have any suggestions of games that you guys want us to review, please don't let it be the Avengers game. If it is, I will suffer through it, I guess. Other than that, hope you guys have a great night. And yeah, it's been real.